Captain Lee Hyuk wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive hole in the ground. 3 months of digging on this strange planet had finally paid off. The excavation team had found something amazing buried deep under the dirt and rocks. Dr. Park, come look at this, Hyuk called to his partner. Dr. Park Minji hurried over, her boots crunching on the loose stones around the dig site. She was the best language expert the human space fleet had, and Hyuk trusted her judgment completely. What is it? Minji asked, looking down into the deep pit their machines had carved out. We found a building, a really old one. The structure below them was made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. It was huge, easily the size of a football stadium, and covered in strange symbols that seemed to move when you looked at them too long. Ambassador Kolthara, the tall blue alien who represented the Vegan government, walked up behind them. His 4 arms crossed over his chest as he studied the discovery. Impressive, he said in his deep voice. How old do you think it is? Our scans show it's at least 50,000 years old, Hyuk replied. Maybe older. General Nexvaran, the military commander from the Altarian Empire, joined their group. He was shorter than the Vegan, but much wider, with thick gray skin and small black eyes. And you're sure it's safe to enter? The air tests show it's breathable, Minji said. But there's something strange about the energy readings coming from inside. The team had been working together for months, but Hyuk could feel the tension between the different alien species. The Vegans thought they were the smartest. The Altarians believed they were the strongest. Both groups treated humans like junior partners in the galactic community. Well, let's go see what our ancient friends left behind, Hyuk said, checking his equipment one more time. The entrance to the crystal building was a perfect arch that opened as they approached. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light that made everything easy to see. The symbols on the wall seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. These writings, Minji whispered, running her scanner along the wall. They're not like anything in our databases. Can you read them? Kolthara asked. Some of them. They talk about a guardian and a final test. But there's something familiar about the language structure. It reminds me of very old human languages. They walked through several empty rooms before reaching the center of the building. What they found there made everyone stop and stare. In the middle of a circular chamber stood a suit of armor on a raised platform. But this wasn't like any armor they had ever seen. It looked like it was made of liquid metal that moved and flowed but never changed shape. The surface reflected light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Incredible, General Nexvaran breathed. The technology required to create this. More symbols covered the walls around the armor. Minji immediately started taking pictures and running her translation programs. The writings here are clearer, she said. They talk about someone called the Last Guardian, and something about choosing the right person. Right person for what? Hyuk asked. I'm not sure yet, but it mentions a great danger coming from far away. Ambassador Kolthara stepped forward, reaching out toward the armor. Perhaps if we examine it more closely. A bright flash of light erupted from the armor. The alien ambassador was thrown backward, sliding across the smooth floor until he hit the wall. He groaned and slowly got to his feet, looking shocked but unhurt. What was that? General Nexvaran demanded. Some kind of defense system, Hyuk said, helping the ambassador stand up properly. The Altarian general decided to try a different approach. He pulled out a metal probe and extended it toward the armor. The same bright flash occurred and the probe was destroyed instantly. Fascinating, Minji said, studying her scanner readings. The armor is generating an energy field that reacts to different life forms. But it's not just pushing everything away. It's specifically targeting alien biology. What do you mean? Kolthara asked, rubbing his sore back. The energy field is scanning whoever approaches it. When it detects non-human biology, it activates the defense system. So it's designed to keep aliens away, General Nexvaran said. But why? Hyuk studied the armor carefully. Something about it felt familiar, though he couldn't explain why. Minji, what else do the writings say? Give me a few more minutes to translate. She worked quickly, her fingers flying over her portable computer. Okay, this is interesting. The armor isn't just a weapon or protection. It's some kind of test. The ancient race that built this place was looking for a specific type of being to inherit their technology. What type? Hyuk asked. Someone who could adapt and grow. Someone who wouldn't give up when faced with impossible challenges. Someone who could unite different groups against a common enemy. That could describe many species, Kolthara pointed out. Maybe. But look at this symbol here. Minji pointed to a complex drawing on the wall. It shows a being that looks remarkably similar to a human. 2 arms, 2 legs, upright posture. Either this is a huge coincidence or the ancients knew humans would eventually find this place, Hyuk finished. General Nexvarine looked skeptical. You're suggesting that an advanced race from 50,000 years ago planned for humans specifically? That seems unlikely, does it? Minji asked. Think about human history. We've always been good at adapting to new situations. We've survived ice ages, wars, diseases, and space travel. We make friends with other species even when they don't trust us at first. Hyuk found himself walking closer to the armor, without really thinking about it. The surface seemed to shimmer more brightly as he approached. Captain, be careful, Kolthara warned. We don't know what it might do to humans. The writings suggest it won't hurt the right person, Minji said. But we don't know for sure if that means humans. Hyuk stopped just out of reach of the armor. He could feel something strange, like a pulling sensation in his chest. There's only one way to find out. This is not wise, General Nexvarine said. If something happens to you, it could cause problems between our governments. And if we don't try, we'll never know what this thing is for, Hyuk replied. The ancients left this here for a reason. Maybe it's time to find out what that reason is. He looked back at his team. Minji nodded encouragingly. The alien representatives looked worried but curious. Taking a deep breath, Hyuk reached out his hand toward the strange armor. The moment his fingers touched the flowing metal surface, the entire chamber filled with brilliant white light. The armor began to change, its liquid metal surface rippling and reshaping itself. Ancient machinery hidden in the walls came to life with humming sounds and flashing lights. And somewhere deep in space, far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something dark and hungry felt the activation signal and began moving toward inhabited worlds. The galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity was at the center of it all. The white light faded slowly, and everyone in the chamber blinked to clear their vision. Captain Lee Hyuk stood perfectly still, his hand still touching the armor. But something had changed. The armor was no longer on the platform. Instead, it was flowing over Hyuk's body like living water, covering him from head to toe. Captain, Dr. Park Minji shouted, rushing forward. But she stopped when Hyuk raised his other hand. I'm okay, he said, though his voice sounded different, stronger somehow. It's not hurting me. It's talking to me. The armor had formed a perfect fit around Hyuk's body. It looked like metal, but it moved like cloth. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared across its surface, and a soft blue glow came from lines that ran along the arms and chest. Ambassador Kolthara backed toward the wall, his forearms spread wide in alarm. What is happening to him? I can see things, Hyuk said, his eyes now glowing with the same blue light as the armor. So many things. The history of this place, the race that built it. They called themselves the Ancients. General Nexvarine drew his weapon but didn't point it at anyone yet. Captain, are you still you? Hyuk turned to look at him and the general stepped back. The human's face was still the same, but there was something different about his expression. Like he was seeing much more than anyone else in the room. I'm still me, Hyuk said, but I know things now. Important things. This armor isn't just protection, it's a warning system. And a weapon. Weapon against what? Minji asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Against something that's coming. Something that destroyed the Ancients and countless other races. They called it the Harbinger. The chamber around them was changing too. Walls that had been blank now showed moving pictures of star systems and space battles. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing maps of the galaxy with red zones spreading like a disease. The Ancients fought this thing for thousands of years. Hyuk continued, information flowing into his mind from the armor. But they couldn't stop it. So they created this. He gestured to the armor covering his body. A final defense system that would wait for the right species to inherit their technology. And they chose humans? Kolthara asked, still staying near the wall. Not exactly chose. They created a test. The armor would only bond with beings who had the right combination of traits. Physical adaptability, mental flexibility, and something they called evolutionary courage. What does that mean? General Nexvarine asked. The willingness to change and grow even when it's dangerous or scary. Most species become set in their ways as they develop advanced technology. They stop adapting. But Hyuk paused, processing more information from the ancient systems. Humans never stop changing. Never stop learning. Never stop trying new things even when everyone tells them it's impossible. Dr. Minji was recording everything on her devices, but her hands were shaking. Captain, this is incredible, but we need to contact Earth. The government needs to know about this. They already know something's happening, Hayek said. The armor's activation sent out a signal. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy just detected it. As if to prove his point, Kolthara's communication device started beeping urgently. He answered it, and they could all hear excited voices speaking in the Vegan language. My government wants to know what we've found, the ambassador said after ending the call. They're sending a military fleet to secure this site. So are mine, General Nexvarin added, checking his own messages. This is going to cause a panic across the galaxy. More holographic displays activated around the chamber. They showed current star charts with blinking lights marking the positions of various alien fleets. Many were already changing course, heading toward their location. They're afraid, Hyuk said, understanding more as the armor shared its knowledge with him. For thousands of years, the galactic community has kept humans in a junior position. We're seen as too young, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Now we have access to technology that none of them can use. Can other humans use it? Minji asked. The armor can make copies of itself, but only for humans who pass the test. Not all will survive the bonding process. It requires a specific genetic and psychological profile. How many humans could potentially use this technology? General Nexvarin asked. His tone was carefully neutral, but they could all hear the concern underneath. Maybe 1 in 10,000, Hayek said. But that would still be hundreds of thousands of potential Guardian Corps members. The word Guardian seemed to activate something else in the ancient systems. New displays showed detailed schematics for weapons, ships, and other technologies that were far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations had developed. Commander Cho Daeho's voice suddenly crackled through the team's radio system. He was the human fleet commander monitoring their mission from orbit. Captain Hyuk, we're detecting massive energy readings from your location. Are you all right down there? We're fine, Commander, Hyuk replied. But we need to talk. Things are about to get very complicated. How complicated? Daeho asked. The kind where every alien government in the galaxy is going to want to either control us or destroy us. There was silence on the radio for a moment. Then, Captain, I'm showing 17 different fleets converging on our position. The Kronar Empire, the Etherian Collective, the Zephyrian Republic. Everyone's coming, Minji looked worried. What do we do? We prepare, Hyuk said. The armor was still feeding him information about its capabilities. He could feel his physical strength increasing, his reflexes becoming faster, his mind processing information at incredible speeds. The ancients designed this system to defend against the Harbinger, but it works just as well against conventional threats. You're talking about fighting entire fleets, General Nexvarin pointed out. Even with advanced technology, you're just one person. For now, Hayek said. But the armor can create temporary copies for emergency situations, and there are other humans who can be tested for compatibility. Scientist Velcris's panicked voice came through the galactic emergency channel that all their communication devices monitored. She was an Etherian energy researcher stationed at the edge of the solar system. This is Station Omega-7. I'm detecting massive spatial distortions in deep space. Something big is moving in our direction from outside the galaxy. Everyone in the chamber froze. Ambassador Kolthara spoke first. Could that be your harbinger? The timing is right, Hyuk said, though he hoped he was wrong. The armor's activation signal travels faster than light. If the harbinger was waiting at the edge of our galaxy, how long do we have? Minji asked. Hyuk closed his eyes, letting the armor's sensors extend his awareness far beyond the planet. What he sensed made his blood run cold. 6 months. Maybe less? That's not enough time to prepare a proper defense, General Nexvarin said. It'll have to be, Hyuk replied, because ready or not, the test is about to begin. Above them, the first alien warships entered the planet's atmosphere, their weapon systems charged and ready. The galaxy had lived in relative peace for centuries, but that peace was about to end. Humanity had just become either the galaxy's greatest hope or its greatest threat. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, an ancient evil that had consumed countless civilizations sensed the Guardian Protocol's activation and began moving faster toward its new prey. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from 47 different species filled the great chamber on the neutral world of Sanctuary Prime. The air was thick with tension and fear. Supreme Chancellor Morden, the ancient leader of the council, spoke in a voice that carried across the massive room. "We are here to discuss the human situation. Captain Lee Hyuk has bonded with technology that none of our species can access or control." Admiral Kim Soo-jin sat in the human delegation area, trying to stay calm while dozens of alien representatives argued around her. As the commander of Earth's defense fleet, she knew that every word spoken here could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. "The humans have violated the Archaeological Protection Treaty," declared War Prime Theknor of the Kronar Empire. The massive reptilian warrior slammed his clawed fist on his desk. "They activated ancient technology without proper authorization. We followed all proper procedures," Admiral Soo-jin replied firmly. "The expedition was approved by this council. We couldn't have known what we would find. But now you have access to weapons that could threaten every civilization in the galaxy," said the Etherian representative, her crystal body glowing with agitation. "Our scientists have analyzed the energy signatures. This Guardian technology is beyond anything we understand." Back on the archaeological world, Captain Hyuk was learning to control his new abilities. The armor had changed him in ways that went far beyond physical enhancement. He could see energy patterns that were invisible to normal eyes. His mind could process tactical information at superhuman speeds. And most importantly, he could interface directly with any technology he touched. Dr. Bei Jiwan, a xenobiologist who had arrived with the emergency response team, ran her scanners over Hyuk for the 100th time. "The changes are remarkable," she said to Dr. Park Minji. "His nervous system has been completely enhanced. His reaction time is now 20 times faster than normal human levels." "But is he still human?" Minji asked quietly. "Biologically, yes. But psychologically," Jiwan paused. "He's processing information and making decisions in ways that no human brain should be able to handle. The armor isn't just protecting him, it's evolving him." The testing of other humans had begun immediately. Volunteers from the human fleet were trying to bond with copies of the armor that the original could create. So far, only 1 in 50 had been compatible, and the process was dangerous. 3 volunteers had died when their nervous systems couldn't handle the integration. Captain O. Min-seok was the first successful Guardian after Hyuk. The young pilot had bonded with a copy of the armor during the second day of testing. Now he stood guard outside the ancient chamber, his new abilities making him more alert to dangers than any normal security system. "Contact," he said into his communicator. Large Kronar fleet approaching from the north. War Prime Theknor had decided that diplomacy was taking too long. If the humans wouldn't surrender the Guardian technology willingly, he would take it by force. His battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace just outside the planet's atmosphere. "Weapons charging for bombardment. This is Admiral Kim Soo-jin to Kronar fleet," came the transmission from the human ships in orbit. "You are violating neutral space. Withdraw immediately." "Humans do not give orders to the Kronar Empire," Theknor replied. "Surrender the ancient technology or face the consequences." "We can't surrender something that only works for us," Soo-jin said. "Even if we wanted to, the armor won't bond with non-humans. Then we will destroy it and you with it." The first Kronar attack ships swept down toward the planet's surface. Their energy weapons fired at the human defensive positions, expecting to overwhelm the small force quickly. What happened next shocked every military observer in the system. Captain Hyuk rose from the planet's surface like a meteor in reverse. The Guardian armor allowed him to fly without any visible propulsion system. His speed was incredible, and he reached the attacking ships in seconds. The first Kronar fighter exploded before its pilot even saw Hyuk coming. The second tried to turn away, but Hyuk moved through space like he was swimming through water, catching the ship and tearing it apart with his bare hands. "Impossible," breathed a Vegan observer monitoring the battle. "No single being should be able to survive in space, let alone move that fast." Captain O. Min-seok joined the fight, his armor copy giving him similar abilities. Together, the two humans destroyed an entire squadron of Kronar fighters in less than 5 minutes. The larger ships tried to retreat, but the Guardians were faster. War Prime Theknor watched his fleet being systematically destroyed from his command ship. "All weapons fire on the humans. Maximum power." The combined firepower of 12 Kronar battleships focused on Hyuk and Min-seok. The energy beams should have vaporized anything they hit. Instead, the Guardian armor absorbed the attacks and redirected the energy back at the enemy ships. Within an hour, the entire Kronar invasion fleet was either destroyed or fleeing. Not a single human ship had been damaged. The battle was broadcast across the galaxy and the reaction was immediate panic. If 2 humans could defeat an entire Kronar fleet, what could hundreds or thousands of Guardians do? Dr. Lim Jae-sung, working frantically in his laboratory on Earth, was trying to understand how the Guardian technology worked. "It's not just advanced," he reported to Admiral Sujin. "It's using principles of physics that we haven't discovered yet. The armor seems to manipulate fundamental forces directly. Can we replicate it without the bonding process?" Sujin asked. "No. The technology is specifically designed to work only with compatible human nervous systems. It's like it was made for us." Back at the Galactic Council, the emergency session had become a shouting match. Some species wanted to unite against the human threat. Others argued for immediate alliance with Earth before the humans decided they didn't need allies anymore. "The humans have proven they cannot be trusted with this power," declared the Altarian representative. "They must be contained before they decide to conquer the galaxy." "Or," said the Centaurian delegate quietly, "we should ask ourselves why an ancient race designed this technology specifically for humans. Perhaps there's something we don't understand about the bigger picture." That bigger picture was becoming clearer to Captain Hyuk as his connection with the armor deepened. The visions were getting stronger and more detailed. He could see the last days of the ancient civilization, their desperate fight against an enemy that consumed entire star systems. "Dr. Park," he called to Minji, who was still working on translations, "I need you to focus on the warnings about the Harbinger. We're running out of time." "I'm working as fast as I can," she replied, "but some of these concepts don't translate well. The ancients described the Harbinger as something that exists between dimensions, something that feeds on the life force of entire civilizations. How do we fight something like that? According to this, you don't fight it directly. You have to change it somehow. Convert it from a predator into something else." Before Hyuk could ask what that meant, alarms started sounding throughout the archaeological site. Long-range sensors were detecting something massive approaching from deep space. Scientist Velcris's voice came through the emergency channel again, but this time she sounded terrified. "This is Station Omega 7. The spatial distortions are getting stronger. Whatever's coming, it's bigger than anything we've ever seen. And it's moving fast. Much faster than we calculated." Captain O'Minsuk looked up at the sky, his enhanced senses already detecting the wrongness approaching their galaxy. "How long do we have?" "2 weeks, Velcris replied. "Maybe less." The galaxy had spent centuries avoiding major conflicts, growing comfortable with peace and stability. Now they faced a threat that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than their own, and their only hope was a species they had always considered too young and dangerous to be trusted with real power. The irony was not lost on anyone. The humans that the galaxy had tried to keep in check were now the only ones who could save them all. President Yoon Hara stood before the emergency joint session of Earth's government and the Galactic Council. The meeting was being held via holographic link, with representatives from across the galaxy appearing as shimmering blue figures around the massive conference table. "The situation is simple," she said, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what she was announcing. "Our long-range sensors confirm that the Harbinger will reach the outer colonies in 10 days. We need to work together if any of us are going to survive." Supreme Chancellor Morden leaned forward in his projection. "President Yoon, with respect, many of our governments are still concerned about giving humans too much authority in this crisis. Then you're welcome to face the Harbinger with your own forces," Admiral Kim Soo-jin said bluntly. "Our battle simulations show that conventional weapons are completely ineffective against this threat." The simulations were terrifying. Based on the ancient records that Captain Hyuk had accessed, the Harbinger didn't just destroy civilizations. It absorbed them, converting their technology, their knowledge, and even their life force into extensions of its own consciousness. Entire star systems had been transformed into organic machines serving the entity's will. Dr. Han Yeji, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, had been studying the Guardian bonding process. "We've identified several hundred more humans who are compatible with the armor," she reported. "But the mental strain is enormous. The pilots are changing in ways we don't fully understand. Captain O'Minsock knew exactly what she meant. Since bonding with his guardian armor, he felt disconnected from normal human concerns. Food didn't taste the same. Sleep was optional. His emotions felt muted, replaced by a constant awareness of tactical situations and energy patterns. The changes are necessary, Captain Hyuk explained during a briefing with the Guardian Corps candidates. The armor doesn't just give us power. It prepares us for what we'll face. The Harbinger doesn't think like any normal life form. To fight it, we have to become something more than human. But do we stop being human? Asked Lieutenant Song Yoonji, one of the newest Guardian candidates. I don't know, Hyuk said honestly. But I know that staying completely human means everyone dies. The Guardian Corps training facility had been established on a moon near Earth. Dr. Lim Jae-sung was working around the clock to create support technology that could work alongside the Guardian armor. Regular humans couldn't use ancient technology directly, but they could operate modified versions that the Guardians could control. Think of it as a neural network, he explained to Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho, who was coordinating the overall defense strategy. The Guardians are the central processors, but they can link with our ships and weapon systems to create a unified force. The first test of this integrated system came sooner than anyone wanted. The Harbinger's advanced scouts had reached the Proxima system, and the results were horrifying. The entire colony is gone, reported Captain Park Jin-woo from the reconnaissance ship that had arrived too late to help. Not destroyed, converted. The buildings are still there, but they're alive somehow. And the people. He couldn't finish the sentence. The video feeds from Proxima showed streets full of human colonists who moved in perfect synchronization, their eyes glowing with the same eerie light that emanated from the transformed buildings. They had become part of the Harbinger's collective consciousness. Can they be saved? President Yoon asked during the emergency briefing. Unknown, Captain Hyuk replied. His connection to the ancient systems was giving him insights into the Harbinger's nature, but many of the concepts were difficult to understand. The ancients believed that conversion could be reversed, but only if the core consciousness was changed. What does that mean? We have to reach the Harbinger's central intelligence and somehow convince it to release its absorbed civilizations. Convince? Admiral Su-jin looked skeptical. How do you negotiate with something that has consumed thousands of species? You don't negotiate, Hyuk said. You prove that there's a better way to exist. The main Harbinger fleet arrived at the edge of human space 3 days ahead of schedule. It was unlike any fleet anyone had ever seen. The ships were biological constructs grown rather than built, and they moved through space like living creatures. Some were the size of moons, others as small as fighters, but all of them pulsed with organic life. Fleet composition is unusual, reported the sensor operator on Admiral Su-jin's flagship. I'm counting approximately 10,000 individual vessels, but they're all connected by some kind of energy network. The Harbinger ships weren't separate entities. They were organs in a single massive organism that stretched across light years of space, and at its center was something that hurt to look at directly, even through filtered sensors. The collective voice, Captain Hyuk said, recognizing the central intelligence from his ancient memories. That's what the Harbinger calls its core consciousness. The first battle began in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The combined fleet of Earth and its alien allies numbered nearly 5,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Against the Harbinger, it looked pitifully small. Guardian Corps, you are authorized for combat operations, Admiral Su-jin announced. All other ships support the Guardians but do not engage the larger Harbinger vessels directly. Captain Hyuk led the assault with 47 other Guardian-bonded humans. They moved through space faster than any normal ship, their armor allowing them to survive in the vacuum while their enhanced abilities let them process the chaotic battlefield at superhuman speeds. The Harbinger's smaller vessels swarmed toward them like antibodies attacking an infection, but the Guardians were ready. Captain Oh Min-seok destroyed 3 enemy ships with focused energy blasts before they could react to his presence. Lieutenant Song Yoonji used her armor's ability to phase through matter to appear inside a Harbinger vessel and tear it apart from within. The smaller ships are just extensions of the main intelligence, Hyuk reported over the communication network. Destroying them weakens the collective, but we need to reach the core. That proved easier said than done. The larger Harbinger vessels began adapting to Guardian tactics. their biological hulls becoming more resistant to energy attacks. Worse, they started converting destroyed human ships into new Harbinger units, adding the absorbed technology to their collective capabilities. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them," Admiral Sujin reported grimly. "The Harbinger is learning from every exchange." Dr. Han Yeji was monitoring the Guardian pilot's mental states from the command ship when she noticed something alarming. "The Guardians are changing more rapidly than before. The stress of combat is accelerating whatever the armor does to their minds." Captain Hyuk felt it too. Each time he used the armor's full power, he could feel himself becoming more distant from his human origins. But he also understood the Harbinger better, saw the pattern behind its actions. "It's not evil," he announced during a brief lull in the fighting. "The Harbinger doesn't destroy civilizations because it wants to. It does it because that's the only way it knows how to exist. It absorbs other life forms because it's trying to understand what life really means." "Are you suggesting we try to communicate with it?" Admiral Sujin asked. "Not communicate, educate. Show it that there are other ways to experience existence without consuming everything around you." "How do we do that?" "I have to get close enough to the collective voice to establish a direct connection. But that means getting through the rest of the fleet first." The second wave of the battle was about to begin, and this time the Harbinger was ready for the Guardians. The entity had learned from the first engagement and was already adapting its tactics. More importantly, it had started converting the outer planets of the solar system, turning them into massive weapons platforms. The fate of not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy, would be decided in the next few hours, and at the center of it all, a young human captain was preparing to attempt something that had never been tried before. Teaching an ancient cosmic entity the value of cooperation instead of consumption. The battle for Earth's solar system was unlike anything in galactic history. Captain Lee Hyuk watched from space as the Harbinger's converted planets fired massive energy beams at the defending fleet. Jupiter had become a living weapon, its great red spot now a gigantic eye that tracked targets across millions of kilometers. "Guardian Corps, this is our final push," he announced to his fellow armor-bonded humans. "We have to reach the collective voice before it finishes converting the inner planets." Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho coordinated the massive distraction assault from his flagship. Every available ship from 47 different species was throwing everything they had at the Harbinger's outer defenses. They couldn't win this fight with conventional weapons, but they could buy the Guardians time. Captain Oh Min-seok had changed the most of all the Guardian pilots. His armor had evolved beyond the original design, creating new abilities as it adapted to his fighting style. "I can phase through their energy shields," he reported. "But once I'm inside their perimeter, I'll be on my own." "No," Hyuk said. "We go together. All of us." Lieutenant Song Yoonji was leading the newest Guardian recruits, pilots who had bonded with their armor just days before the final battle. "Captain, half of our people have never fought anything like this before. Then they'll learn fast, or we'll all die trying." Dr. Han Yeji monitored the Guardian pilots from the command ship, watching their vital signs and mental patterns. What she saw worried her deeply. "Admiral, the Guardians are pushing their armor beyond safe limits. Their brain activity is off the charts. Will they survive?" Admiral Sujin asked. "I don't know. The armor is changing them into something that might not be human anymore." President Yoon Hara stood in the emergency command center on Earth, watching the battle through orbital cameras. "Dr. Lim, what's the status on the Guardian support systems?" "All human ships are now linked to the Guardian network," Lim Jae-sung reported. "When the Guardians engage the collective voice, our entire fleet will become an extension of their capabilities. This was the breakthrough that might save them." The Guardian armor could interface with any technology, including the ships and weapons of every species in the galactic fleet. For the first time in the war, they would have unified command and control. The final assault began with Captain Hyuk leading 48 Guardians in a direct charge toward the heart of the Harbinger fleet. Behind them, thousands of ships from across the galaxy followed in perfect formation, their weapons and defenses controlled by the Guardian network. The Harbinger's response was immediate and devastating. Converted asteroids launched themselves like missiles at the attacking force. Biological ships the size of cities opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into a deadly maze of energy. And from the center of it all, the collective voice began to sing. What is that sound? Lieutenant Park Sun-ho asked over the communication network. It's trying to convert us, Hyuk replied, his armor filtering out the psychic attack. The collective voice uses sound to break down the mental barriers of other species. The song was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It promised peace, unity, and an end to all suffering. Many of the alien ship crews began to weaken, their resolve crumbling as the Harbinger's influence washed over them. But the Guardians were different. Their enhanced minds could resist the conversion attempt, and their armor protected them from the worst effects. More importantly, they could extend that protection to the ships linked to their network. All vessels maintain formation, Captain Oh Min-seok commanded. The Guardians will handle the psychic attacks. The space battle became something beyond normal warfare. Reality itself seemed to bend around the conflict as ancient technology clashed with the Harbinger's reality-altering abilities. Ships phased in and out of normal space-time, energy beams curved around gravity wells that shouldn't exist. And through it all, the Guardians pressed forward. Captain Hyuk was the first to reach the collective voice. What he found there defied description. It wasn't a ship or a creature, but a vast consciousness made of pure thought and energy. It had been consuming civilizations for millions of years, growing larger and more complex with each absorption. Why do you resist? The collective voice asked, speaking directly into Hyuk's mind. Join us. Become part of something greater than your individual existence. Because being greater doesn't mean consuming everything around you, Hyuk replied. He could feel the ancient echo stirring within his armor, the preserved consciousness of the race that had created the Guardian Protocol. Show it, the ancient echo whispered. Show the Harbinger what we learned too late. Hyuk opened his mind completely, letting the collective voice see not just his thoughts, but the thoughts and memories of every human connected to the Guardian network. The Harbinger experienced human history through thousands of different perspectives. It felt the pain of loss and the joy of discovery. It understood love, friendship, sacrifice, and hope. But most importantly, it experienced cooperation, humans working together not because they had been absorbed into a collective consciousness, but because they chose to support each other while remaining individuals. This is different, the collective voice said, its song changing from an attack to something like wonder. You maintain your separate identities while still achieving unity of purpose. That's what the ancients were trying to teach you, Hyuk said. You don't have to consume other civilizations to understand them. You can learn from them while letting them remain themselves. The realization hit the Harbinger like a physical blow. For millions of years it had been trying to understand the nature of life by absorbing it, but in doing so it had destroyed the very thing it was trying to comprehend. The absorbed civilizations, the collective voice said. Can they be restored? If you're willing to let them go. What happened next was visible across the entire galaxy. The Harbinger's converted worlds began to change, their organic surfaces dissolving to reveal the original planets underneath. Ships that had been absorbed into the collective regained their individual identities, and most miraculously, the people who had been converted started to remember who they were. The colonists on Proxima stood in the streets, blinking in confusion as their individual consciousness returned. On Jupiter, the massive eye closed and the planet began to return to its natural state. Captain Oh Min-seok watched from his position near the collective voice as the entity began to transform itself. Instead of a hungry predator consuming everything in its path, it was becoming something new. A teacher, a guide, a force for growth and discovery rather than destruction. What will you do now? Hyuk asked the transformed Harbinger. Learn, came the reply. Explore the spaces between galaxies. Seek out new forms of life and try to understand them without destroying them. And perhaps, help other species avoid the mistakes we made. Dr. Han Yeji was amazed by the readings from her sensors. The Guardian pilots are stabilizing. Whatever just happened, it's allowed them to maintain their human consciousness while keeping their enhanced abilities. The transformation of the Harbinger had somehow completed the Guardian evolution process. The pilots were no longer caught between human and ancient states of being. They had become something new, beings who could bridge the gap between different forms of consciousness. President Yoon Hira addressed the combined fleets as the immediate crisis ended. This victory belongs to every species that fought together today. But we also need to acknowledge that the galaxy has changed forever. She was right. The old order, where humans were considered a junior species, was over. The Guardian Corps had proven that humanity had something unique to offer the galactic community. Not just military power, but the ability to adapt, grow, and find new solutions to impossible problems. Supreme Chancellor Morden formally announced the change during the emergency session that followed the battle. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes Earth as the new seat of galactic government, with President Yoon Hera as our Supreme Chancellor. Captain Hyuk established the Guardian Academy on the Moon, where they had trained for the final battle. Humans would still be the primary guardians, but other species could learn to work with ancient technology in supporting roles. Captain Oh Min-suk became the first instructor, teaching new recruits from dozens of different worlds. The most important thing to remember, he told his students, is that power without wisdom is just destruction. The ancients learned that too late. We won't make the same mistake. Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho retired from military service to help establish the new galactic exploration programs. With the Harbinger transformed from threat to ally, there were new frontiers to explore and new forms of life to discover. Dr. Lim Jae-sung continued his research into Guardian technology, but now with a focus on peaceful applications. The same systems that had made the armor so effective in combat could be used to heal damaged worlds and restore extinct species. 5 years after the crisis, Captain Lee Hyuk stood on the observation deck of the new Guardian command station, watching ships from across the galaxy work together on joint missions. Humans and aliens cooperated as equals now, united by their shared experience of almost losing everything. The transformed Harbinger had become humanity's partner in exploring the vast unknown regions beyond the galaxy.